Hello, and thank you for coming to a 3:50 p.m. panel at Digital Hollywood, the last one. You are truly showing the endurance in attending this conference, and we're proud to present to you guys, so thank you for coming. My name is Mariana Danilovich, and this panel is about broadband and advertising, two topics I'm sure you haven't heard about yet, so we're going to address them today. But the good news is that even though you've heard a lot about broadband and probably even more about advertising up till today, things that we actually are going to discuss on this panel you may have not heard about yet. And the panelists have warned me that they would have to kill me afterwards if I tell you what they are. So I hope you will be able to decipher what they are as the panel goes on. So there will be a quiz at the end. But we do have some very important things going on in this panel. One is that we do have a network on the panel, which shall remain nameless at this point, that has aggregated over 40 million views, video views, per month of collected video, distributed video, through broadband and through multiple platforms, which is what, if you attended the rest of the conference, everyone else professes will happen in the next couple of years. The second thing that we have on this panel from another company that can talk about it at length is a mathematical model that allows, in essence, smart placement of ads, both banner ads and video ads within different networks, which is another thing that I've heard all day long, and I think you may have asked a question about that, that's coming and will be coming in the future. We have it. It's happening today. So the good news is it's broadband, it's advertising, but we're going to bring you information that you may have not heard, and we will talk about things that are happening today. And we will entertain you while we do it. So with that, I would like to introduce Rick Hack, who is he's a new media and marketing specialist with CBS Radio. And I can tell you his bio, but I'm going to let him tell it. I saw something with Howard Stern in it, so why don't you start with that?
Well, that's an interesting place to start because now Howard Stern's on another, radio network. But for the past 3 years, I was doing a lot of, I guess, non-linear, what they call disruptive marketing, where it's in programming, promotions within the content of the radio station. So with Howard Stern, it was within the entire network. It was within one station. It was broadcast, syndicated to all, or simulcasted to all 45 radio stations. So I continue to do that and continue to do it with our other personalities within Westwood One, as well as on a local level, and then building brand extensions as well, because I think what it really matters right now is, at least with us, is working things on a local level, having the listener connectivity on a local level, and that's why we're also launching a SMS 20 market expansion here probably in the next couple months as a first phase, and continuing to work on our streaming abilities as well.
So Rick, I think of Howard Stern as disruptive programming, but can you explain for our audience what is disruptive marketing in radio and in digital media in terms of what you've done with him?
Sure, and that would be, I guess you're working on two sides of I'm not sure if this applies here, but you're working on two different marketing departments, as well as the press side, as well as a marketing division, where you're creating stunts within programming. I guess I can give you some examples of things we've done with studios, and that's where entertainment, that's where my expertise lies, is working within studios. Have a release of a film. For instance, they had a release of Daredevil a couple years ago with Fox Entertainment. We created a naked Daredevil contest within the Howard Stern show. So I guess that's somewhat disruptive.
Well, so that would basically be inserted within the show?
Yeah, it's worked out in a way that you try to find content or marketing content within a show that that makes the listener want to listen, and they don't feel like they're being advertised to. They feel like it's part of the program, it's part of the show.
So it's what we would call in branded entertainment storyline and character integration.
Some
It's
ways.
disruptive on radio. Okay, we got the terms down. Maria Mendel comes from Ogilvy Interactive, that small advertising company in New York. She's the director of digital innovation. She's also slightly undereducated and is currently getting her degree, her PhD in philosophy with a concentration in emerging communication from Murdoch University, but has her degree at Wharton Business School, her MBA, and is teaching at Kellogg. And Maria is going to tell us a little bit about cross-platform integration in this broadband space.
Hi. It's quite an introduction. You want to job as my PR agent?
I actually have mine in the audience. I can introduce you to her.
Nice job. So a lot of people ask, what is digital innovation? Basically, my group works across Ogilvy's clients, which include clients like IBM, American Express, Ameritrade, Six Flags, Unilever, Kraft, just to name a few. And we really cover some of the emerging marketing channels such as digital video, mobile marketing, gaming, digital out of home, as well as some emerging marketing practices such as branded entertainment and community marketing. And really the challenge is to change the paradigm with how advertising is being created and really help the agency and our clients move forward and understand what are consumers doing in their life throughout their day, and how do we reach them in a way that incorporates all these new and emerging platforms in addition to the traditional channels that we're used to communicating with them. So it's really about not only doing one-off programs and leveraging a lot of things we're going to talk about today, but how do you really start incorporating that into 360 communications.
And then Jan Stock comes from that other small media buying agency, MediaVest in New York. And she's the Vice President, Associate Director of Advanced Television. She is in charge of all of the advanced platforms. So we're very lucky to have her here today to kind of set us straight what's going to happen beyond web.
Hopefully. So anyway, where I work at MediaVest, again, we're very similar in where we go and what we're looking at. I work across as well clients such as P&G, Master Foods, Coke, Kraft as well, many others that we actually are helping them to try to figure out this new wild, wild world that we're moving into. So I focus in on all platforms that we really look at as video more than anything else. And it doesn't matter to the consumer what screen it comes on. So that can be your television or your computer or your phone. It can be, you know, your gaming device. Whatever it is, it's video to them. So we're working very hard to try to get with our clients to get them to see this new world really in a different way. So we'll talk about that.
Jan's going to cover what television networks and cable networks, which there are 390 nationally distributed cable networks, 5 broadcasting networks, are doing in this new space. So we're going to see that perspective. And then we have Simon Assad, who's the co-CEO, co-founder of Heavy Incorporated, which I did not know about very much because I'm not a male between ages of 18 and 35. And apparently all the males who have gone away from all the cable networks and broadcasting networks are actually on Heavy.
They're all on Heavy, that's right.
So Simon's going to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, they're all on Heavy. We started Heavy in 1999 as a broadband entertainment destination, and we're thrilled to see that broadband's finally arrived. In addition, the advertising has come to really recognize that there is a substantial audience in at least the young male space that is consuming entertainment through broadband. And our primary focus is to build one of the preeminent digital entertainment brands for men 18 to 34 in the United States and eventually internationally as well. And this year we'll roll out VOD, broadband, mobile, and hopefully a lot of fun content and programs that will get people's attention, the audience most importantly.
And Robert Petty is the chairman and chief executive officer of RU, which has garnered quite a bit of an interest at this conference. It is one of the largest, probably the largest broadcasting network on the web. They aggregate content and distribute content from many different sites, and he'll tell you a little bit more about the size and the breadth and depth of this experience.
Hi. Probably the key focus is about 5 years ago, we looked very, very carefully at the traditional broadcasting model, which is if you took a CBS or an NBC where they buy content in and then they distribute that across their own TV affiliate sites, their own TV channels plus their affiliate sites, and support that with advertising. We very much took that model and adopted that for the internet. So we buy and license in content. We then distribute it across a network of websites, I think we've got about 130, 140 sites at the moment, and we support that. That's largely the key revenue stream is coming from advertising. We've been building this over the last 5 years, but this is really the year where everything we've been doing to now is really starting, to prepare us for the game, for what's going on now. Just a few little things. We've got about 8,000 videos available at any one time across 55 different content channels. The users, and this is an interesting statistic, across the network, a year ago, the average user was coming onto the network and spending 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the network. As of December this year, the average user coming onto any one of our network sites is spending 25 minutes there. And I think even Comscore reported at 33 minutes. So we showed 400,000 videos, around 400,000 videos a month in 2004. This month, we're sort of heading towards 60 million for the month. We're activating about 1 new website a day at the moment, and we probably work with about 50 key content providers, and a lot of the larger media companies we're starting to work with on activating multiple websites.
I always love to have these future billionaires on my panels. It's kind of a good place to start. And next to him is John Ferber, who is the Chief Product Officer of Advertising.com. And the man after my own heart because of my math degree. AdLearn is a mathematical engine that's tracking and measuring sales on the internet sites based on the principles of mathematical optimization. And it does this not just for banner ads and current advertising models, but also for video advertising. So people kept saying during the panels today that this is coming and coming and coming, and it's here.
Yes, I'm the living embodiment of, whoops, sorry. Thank you all for having me here. So, the brief 30 seconds on advertising.com, we're an interactive services marketing organization. We kind of have two distinct arms. So we work with publishers. We work with 70 of the top 100 Comscore, Nielsen, internet-based publishers, and then, kind of the longer tail, about 1,000 in total. And we work with them, and we, in essence, monetize by acquiring all of their advertising space from them, or as much as they're willing to provide for us. And then we have another whole separate division of the company, if you will, that goes and sells this advertising space to advertisers. And as Mariana had alluded to, kind of our unique selling proposition is a technology we built called AdLearn, which does, in essence, attempt to solve as best as possible the old John Wanamaker problem of, I know half my ad dollars are wasted. The problem is I don't know which half. Our reach is pretty pervasive. We touch 90% of the active internet population in the United States, about 10 times per day on average. So we serve about 60 billion ads per month in a display environment. About 3 months ago, we launched our video capabilities, and these kind of manifest themselves as what's known as pre-roll-based video opportunities in the streaming environment. We've acquired partnerships that provide us with access to about 200 million monthly streams from about 75 partner websites. That we again make available to our advertisers in that side of the business. We were acquired by, and we are now a wholly owned subsidiary of America Online, and that's about it. Thank you.
More small companies on the panel. All right, so for our audience, very quickly, and I'm going to start with Jan and all the alternative markets and then come to everyone else. Could you define broadband advertising, like kind of run down some of the formats? She gets the easy questions.
Yeah, I guess for everybody, there's two ways to look at broadband. Broadband is access. Obviously, broadband is as well the term we use for advertising. It's anything that's really video related. The units really vary from pre-roll units, there's post-roll units, units that go within the programming themselves as you place things. Obviously, there's tons of people here who are content providers, and some of them as well are able to put in brand entertainment type aspects as well. Obviously, next to them, a lot of times there's display ads that go with the broadband. I don't know if you want to add any more, but it's sort of it's a good basic start.
Maria, you have some things to add?
Yeah, maybe it's time we start having some fun, because I'm going to challenge that some of the most interesting formats have yet to be developed, because I think a lot of advertisers right now, the most common format that's available are the pre-roll ads, and that's very similar to television commercials and what people are used to. But I think the newer type of formats are probably the more interesting things to look at. So let's think about how we can start adding interactivity and start having, you know, short form linking to long form, and how can you start incorporating and embedding products into content. So I think that's really the future of broadband advertising and the opportunities that really exist for our advertisers. Because right now I think the formats are fairly limited.
Okay, so that's a great point. And then let's talk about branded entertainment. If one of you wants to take that and define all of the ways that branded entertainment integrates advertising messages into this broadband content. Who wants to take?
I can take it. It's actually something that I'm looking into for my doctorate. There are two primary forms of brand entertainment. There's implicit and explicit. And it's as simple as either developing either product placement or integrating products into content, whether it's a video game or a piece of video content. And it's a area that's very hot at the moment. I mean, obviously we're at Digital Hollywood, so it's an area that we're all focused on. But it's also an area that we need to be very careful about, because when you're integrating products into content, it needs to make sense for the user, and it needs to be realistic in the environment that it's in. Otherwise, you're going to have a consumer backlash.
Okay, and so integration into the content can be storyline integration, can be character integration, can be on-air mention or on whatever broadband format you are mentioned. It can be placement of the product. Cross-promotional, cross-marketing opportunities still can be viewed as that. Events, tours, and other things where you can cross-promote with the sponsors. That's still, in essence, broadband. Heavy's got more?
I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that we still talk about formats. And
Okay.
I don't really know why we continue to lock ourselves into something that was created 50 years ago because the only distribution medium was television and radio. Broadband's it's like a big blank canvas where you should be thinking about, as a marketer, how can I engage the audience? Not how can I buy some ads and whack them on a page and fit them into like 360 by whatever the other size is. I just think it's kind of fascinating that you know, in this day and age, looking into the future, that we continue to use words like format. It just seems, the opposite of the way that broadband is really developed. You look at community sites, you look at the way that users are integrating with entertainment, with brands. You just look at all the things that people kind of create on a daily basis that live outside a format but get people's attention. As marketers, our job is to get people's attention however we can get it, as long as it fits within the context of the brand that's delivering the message. And I think as long as we continue to talk about formats, we really limit ourselves and our imaginations.
That's a great point. So when we had basically television programming in a 24/7 kind of scheduling, you are looking at 30-minute program, 30-second spot and all that. And then we launched Digital Entertainment Network when I ran the incubator at KPMG, and we had a 9-minute programming. And a Hollywood Reporter wrote an article the next week saying, the 9-minute programming has been born. And you know, if you talk to David Newman, who now runs Current Television, he said, I just had that 9 minutes of programming, so I was able to put it out.
Right, it was,
that's how
it was
born.
what was interesting, and that was it. Right.
So from that perspective, what you're, I think, proposing is now that consumers are going to ask for something else. And what are some of these examples?
Well, I think we should ask ourselves, you know, what is that something else, rather than, you know, it doesn't have to be defined by the consumer. We're all consumers. we all know what's interesting and exciting and engaging to us. Why on earth can't we create it?
Okay, so
we don't need to necessarily rely on them.
give us an example.
Do you want to step
Anybody
in
want
here?
to, Tom?
The way we're thinking and the approach that we're taking at RU is that content's going to fall into a few different categories. One is that there'll be live, which is live news, live business, and those things that we're used to seeing. And then we strongly believe that everything else will be on demand. Watch what you want, when you want, on virtually any device that you want. And that can be any length, any sort of content, anything. And the consumers will drive us to what they want to watch, and they tell us. You know, we literally sit in the back end. It's, you know, some of the advertising examples, we've had one or two advertisers that have run 3 ads for 24 hours, and we've just sat in the background to see what the results are, dropped 2, gone run of network on 1. But the consumers will tell us everything. Our job is really just to put as much up, and they'll lead us in the right direction very, very quickly.
Did you guys ever put up a piece of content with Rue and Heavy where you thought this was just going to be totally hot and the consumers just didn't really want to see it at all?
We know every now and then we have some
Never
bets
happened.
on a certain bit of content. I think probably a bad example was you know, Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake a couple of years ago, where we sat there and said, you know, we got hold of the unedited clip and we said, we put this up, do we not put it up?
What?
And
That's copyright infringement, isn't it?
no, we had it. It was licensed, but we had it about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Word had slowly travelled round through the morning. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the servers blew up. But you know, sometimes it's. But no, a lot of the content, just the users will tell us. They'll tell us in a heartbeat. Sometimes we'll bet that a certain entertainment story is going to get the views and another one won't. And but we never. You know, the consumers just put it up there and they watch what they want.
So they just really are kind of rebelling against the FCC, is that?
You know, I think a part of this too is that, you know, we talk about brand entertainment, but I think that's an old phrase. I don't think it should be called brand entertainment anymore. You know, it's really, we call it now brand in entertainment, and our group is now called connective tissue, because there is no, you know, just product placement. There is no product insertions. It's got to be, you know, so consumers can watch the clips that they want. You've got to really integrate within the programs. Has to be seamless to the consumer. We've all seen really bad examples, and we've all seen great examples, and we need to, you know, go through this and test and work with content providers to be part of the programming and not just be the pre-roll, post-roll around it. We've got to think out of the box. I mean, we've started, but we're only touching the surface.
Yeah.
And where can we go from here?
Great point what Jen's saying. I think it's also where the market is too, that it's been the traditional video ads coming from the broadcasters. They've virtually had no accountability for 50 years. You know, the ads played and how many people watched it. Well, we sort of think this
Wait,
many
you're a
watched
public
it.
company, I just remind
no.
you.
But all of a sudden, so it's been a big transition for, you know, some of the broadcast buyers and the guys that are holding the big budgets have got their hands in there and saying, look, you know, just give us a moment to walk through that. I think the stage of last year was when things got going, and you had a lot of the, you know, the household brand groups got involved, like, you know, Procter and Pfizer and that, where they sprayed around. By mid-year, the car companies had entered. But there's still an enormous amount of big brands that, you know, are just coming into the market. And a lot of them are using repurposed TV ads. But I think through this year, we're going to see ads being produced that are, you know, that branded content, or they're starting to get more exciting now. But just, they'll be step by step. They're not all suddenly, you know, trying all these weird and wonderful things.
Well, and that's a scalability issue too. So you can spend all this money to create a 30 and 15, and if you tell, you know, client there's no place to run it, you know, you've got to be cautious too with, as we talk to them and find places. And I think the internet and broadband
We
is
got lots of inventory.
yeah.
Give it to us.
those are perfect places to put these new units, 5, 7s, things that people are testing, and there's more and more places that are becoming a part of, you know, where we buy.
Yeah, I just want to add. I think it's a key piece. You know, one, I mean, a lot of the excitement right now is in the whole pre-roll space, which I think everybody here, you know, if you look at it, you're
Define
saying,
pre-roll, because
Oh,
not
sorry,
everybody's in
it's
advertising.
just generally, you know, if you're watching a video segment online, and as you know, notice they're mostly vignettes, 3 to 30 seconds to 9 minutes.
So it's like an ad on television, but online.
Right. It's the very. It's just, you know, the format that seems to be prevalent on the internet right now that the IAB, which is Interactive Advertising Bureau, is standing behind, and really is the first video standard, and they actually just released their guidelines last week. You know, again, it just simply constitutes the ad that you see before you see physical content, and unlike TV, where you know, the typical program might be 30 minutes or an hour, they're generally just showing you one ad before the segment, and then they'll use some form of session state management technology so that if you go to heavy 10 times in one day, you might just still, and you see 10 clips, you still only might see one ad in the beginning of the first one, and then the next day you come back and then you'll see one again, that type of a concept. But the point I was trying to convey is, so there's most of the excitement right now is in this whole pre-roll space, but I think we'll all agree it's just, it's nothing new. It's the commercial from a TV. Right. And I agree with my fellow panelists. Some of the more interesting stuff that I've seen is a company called Rovion, for example, that does blue screening technology. So it's not about, it's all video, but it's a video on your web page. And there's other companies like iBlaster and PointRoll that specialize in rich media types of ads that can incorporate video or interactivity, as Maria had stated, or really wild elements that leverage the broadband concept, which is you need to have a broadband connection with the user in order to push this lot of content, which is in the form of an ad, down to the user's machine in an acceptable period of time. And right now the largest space in video advertising is actually in banner. It's not the pre-roll spot.
Right.
And,
That's not real. That's not really real video.
I mean, if it moves into animated, I would argue it's video. So, and it could be 30 seconds. I'm sure we've all gone to Yahoo.
Definition of video, it moves.
Well, I'm sure we've all gone to Yahoo or other major portals and seen, movie premiere ads and things like that.
But it's an interesting point, though, to think about the fact that all video really has done is shown us that there are a lot of people with a fast connection. And limiting yourself to video as a way to express a marketing message is something that's very tied to a medium that we've been living in for 50 years. And broadband does so much more than video. And the connection speed is the only thing right now that's really defined by video. So starting to think about actually creating experience, about creating connections between audiences and marketers on a much larger scale beyond kind of popping in and out of their lives, creating context, defining environment. Those are the things that actually start to become really interesting.
That's a great point, because with one of our local stations, we have a woman that has a radio show locally on KNX, Melinda Lee, and she has actually a food news network, which is actually a cooking show, 4 hours each day on Saturday and Sunday. And we actually took her program. She has about 500,000 listeners locally, and we've created a webcasting component, which is in conjunction with Albertsons, as well as some of her local sponsored advertisers like Kitchen Connection, and created a webcasting piece that is very interactive. You can click on things as you're going through the webcast. You can ask questions about it through the webcast. So that's going to launch very shortly locally here on KNX, knx.com.
Well, I'm glad that you brought out advertisers and sponsors, because I'm going to talk about the budget next. And Simon, I just want to put this on your radar screen. Before the end of the panel, you will rename the panel from Broadband Advertising to whatever you think it should be. So start thinking about that, since you're questioning every term here. This is your task. Task for the panel. He wasn't really prepared, so we'll see what he comes up with. Okay, so let's talk about the budget. Is there broadband advertising budget? And Jan and Maria and everybody, and where is this budget within a brand? Where do they keep this money?
I mean, I can talk about it because I work on and really planning and strategy for agencies, and I think every client is different. So in some clients, broadband is absolutely its own line item by now. Other clients still need, a little more hand-holding, and it may come from various areas. It may come from television, may come from radio, may come from out of home. Again, I think as we are moving forward and our clients are understanding, consumers do not see the difference of screens. They don't know the difference between watching a video on the computer or watching a video on the television. And it's important that we manage our media budgets the same way, that we follow the consumer experience and don't necessarily put things in buckets as we have in the past.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, our clients don't really separate out broadband versus, rich media versus whatever it is. I think it's really about figuring out what's the right channel to reach the consumer. I think a lot of our clients are very excited about video because it's sight, sound, and motion. And if you look at a lot of the results, Dynamic Logic a few years ago reported that video ads have 2.5 times the effectiveness of rich media ads. It's a very attractive medium, but at the same time, you have to keep in mind user behavior. So, for example, when somebody's sitting 8 inches versus 8 feet away from a screen, when somebody's carrying a mobile device and they're on the go, or when somebody sees a video billboard, completely different experiences. So you want to deliver messages that are right for the formats that the consumers are going to be consuming that video in.
I think something that we're looking at a bit more now is that the advertiser's going to change a lot too. That like we've, the people that Jen, etc., represent are all the big brands. But I think if Google's shown us one thing, they've activated all these tiny little people that have got some form of advertising budget to activate, on into the search space. Now, think about that moving to video, where all of these people, you get the blue hippopotamus cup in front of the blue hippopotamus content or the blue hippopotamus search, get that down to video, where you're getting, the cancer drug in front of the cancer content and getting that matching up. But I think that we're going to see an emergence where there's all these small players that none of us have ever heard of. They mightn't even have an advertising agency that can knock together a 15-second spot or knock together some exciting branded content that'll be, acceptable and get lots of. So I think there's going to be an enormous amount of dollars coming out of that space.
Well, go ahead.
And some of the big advertisers, the guys are getting a bit seasoned. The other day we had a $50,000 order come through just on the website, just from a major company, like a top 100 company, just placed a $50,000 order through the website. So it's only small to start with, but it's going to be very interesting.
The market's growing from two different directions. This market's coming into the broadband because they have kind of exhausted things with print television and traditional media buys, and they see all the growth in broadband. And then you have this whole new market that's really not defined, and it's really relevant to our audience because Jen pointed out that we have a lot of content producers in this audience. We're in Hollywood. We have a lot of independent companies that are hoping to create the next Heavy or something in a different category, if it's possible, something in a different category. And they're thinking, how can I grow my business without hiring MediaVest to buy my media and place me on all these networks? And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about the ways that independent digital media networks can actually grow their business using what you guys have already developed.
Can I answer this? I'll give it one line, that's all. Come to us and we'll have you activated in 24 hours. So we've got all the technology, we've got this down pat, activating content providers. So if anybody's interested in getting up and running, we've got the whole process down pat to get you up and running, and then on either your website or syndicated across stacks of websites.
And so what, is it a revenue share or is it a fee plus?
With content, it's usually pay per view. So and I think that's part of sorting out the content. So the content's getting watched all the time. They're the content providers that are earning the best revenue. And also giving them the tools so the content providers can put up a mix of content and then sit there and sit in the background and see what content's hot, what the users are liking, and adjust their content.
How much content do I need to have to get on? How many hours?
No, it doesn't even have to be hours. It's regularity, how often it's coming through. We're really still focusing on that 3 to 5 minute sort of stuff, but stuff that can be cut up and any amount from 10 videos, as long as it's good quality.
This is a very different discussion than we had in these panels even a year ago. So if you are a content producer, you actually have outlets today that you can use.
I think it's important, though, to note that you can be a content producer and it's great to work with people, but as far as advertisers are concerned, you need to have the metrics, the measurement, you need to have the IAB in place, you need to have the standards in place before we really can go down that path with you, which we were talking before about where does money come from. We hear this great thing, it's called a DVR, and it's scaring advertisers a lot because of all the commercial skipping. So there's a lot of money that's really come into the industry, and broadband has taken off for two main reasons. It's scalable, it's in a lot of places, and secondly, it's measurable. And those are the things that video on demand and some other areas that just can't provide us as much as some of these areas can. So I think from our side, it's great to be out there, but you've got to have some regulations in place.
So following up on that, let's say you're a content producer and you're developing something for a children's network, for example, and you have 50 hours of programming and you want to get onto one of these networks, and you want to start with broadband because clearly that's the easiest way to go. So Jen, for you, how long would it take you to develop the mobile and the VOD portion of that, and would you even advise them to do that? And then what do you guys say?
I'm not touching kids' content with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, let's see, non-MySpace content.
You know, I mean, I think it's probably a better question for some of you guys.
Yeah, we're actually in MIPCOM next week, sort of looking at licensing as much as we can. And what's interesting is the laws around it are a bit different. Like for broadcast, the laws on what can happen with kids' content is a lot different to what happens in the broadband environment. We love it. The great thing about kids is that they'll watch, anybody that's got kids at home, they'll watch the same DVD or the same video 500 times. So instead of having to refresh it every day, I reckon if we put 10 up, they'll be quite happy regularly watching it. But yeah, I mean, just get it up, and if they're watching it and it's the right target market, you know, I think it'll be attractive to advertisers.
And when does it become a VOD or a mobile platform opportunity? Where does your content producers say, okay, now I'm making some money on broadband because I have pay-per-view and Roo. When am I going to be able to monetize this in other channels? What's the timeline?
But see, it's content again, so there's no reason why you can't be on broadband and video on demand and mobile at the same time. I mean, you were saying before that, you know, you're going to migrate to video on demand. All of these things are out there. It's just a matter of putting the business models together. So the timeline's now. The timeline's, it's time to put all that stuff out. We are spending money in all of those areas for our clients. So it's, you know, great. Again, it's just about metrics and measurement.
Just figuring out the right business model around it. Maria?
And I think it depends on the audience and the brand as well. Because, for example, if you're looking to target a B2B type of audience, you may be better off targeting them through broadband during the day in contextually relevant places. If you're trying to reach a busy mom, maybe you want to reach her on video on demand or through TiVo showcases or et cetera. If you want to reach like a young early adopter teen, maybe mobile video is the way to go. These are just some specific examples, but I think it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and who you're trying to reach as well.
So Simon, how do you reach males 18 to 34?
How?
Yeah, like what reaches them on heavy? What's like the killer app?
It's programming.
But what programming? What kinds?
There's a range of programming on heavy. We use comedy is incredibly popular. We'll be launching new season of a new slate of programming coming up in May. We have a show called Behind the Music That Sucks, which is a parody of the old VH1 standard Behind the Music, which has been very popular. We also have created programming out of video games with the video game publishers called Machinima, which has been incredibly popular. And then a great deal of programming that's been very popular for us is stuff that is created by users, although I'm loath to use that term because it feels like it's been beaten to death, and on heavy it's just a little bit different. The heavy brand is about an editorial point of view, about a lifestyle, about a way of consuming entertainment in whatever form it might take, and so we editorialize the user-generated content.
By packaging it or by
That's
changing it?
Well, first we decide whether we think it's interesting or not, and then we package it and present it in such a way that it is consistent with kind of the heavy brand, the heavy environment, and the context. But the killer app is programming, without a doubt.
The heavy site's not like, it's great to go and have a look at. You know, Simon and I only just met today, but
He's going to diss me already.
No. It's a great site, and it's not the way you picture a website operating. It operates completely different. It's got doors shutting, and it's really, really fantastic.
So what appeals to a male 18 to 34 on this site? And
a girl
you
taking
guys...
her top off.
Okay, that's
Pretty blunt.
the naked news. I knew it.
There's no nudity on heavy.
There is?
There is not.
There is none?
No, there is none. There is no nudity on heavy.
Really? I'm
No,
impressed.
absolutely not. Heavy is defined by a standard that is consistent with cable.
Really?
And specifically for that, for the reason that we're creating an environment that is not only great for consumers, but is also friendly for advertisers. If you are a large brand advertiser and you are a Fortune 500 company, no matter what is going on in the world, there are certain constraints as a public corporation that you need to abide by. And so having spent 7 years building a quote-unquote broadband advertising environment on Heavy, what's become clear to us is that audience is not enough. There is an enormous amount of audience on the internet, and it's not enough to attract premium advertising dollars from brands that matter. You need context, you need a sandbox that they can play in, you need engagement, you need entertainment. And there are certain guidelines that you have to abide by in order to play in that sandbox.
Yeah. I tend to agree with Simon where, one, we're seeing a tectonic change in who the top 10 advertisers are on the internet. And, if you look right now, it's companies like University of Phoenix and Lower My Bills and entities like that. Now, in the next 2 years, it'll be the traditional TV advertisers coming online, and their sensitivity to the content that they're on is tremendous. I'm sure you guys are nodding your heads, and rightfully so. And I think, and I was at another conference 2 days ago, and there was a lot of, will brand advertisers sponsor things like user-generated content? And, the reality is they're looking at it like it's GeoCities, homepage types of stuff, and they don't really want to touch it, and they're, getting further away. And I apologize if you guys have been talking about it.
So they're really more interested in brands
yeah,
that have
so,
already
I mean,
been built. Okay.
it pays to focus on quality in Rob's business to ensure, to track the Coca-Colas and, the MediaVests and the Ogilvies and their client base, because, the tonnage is also, it's like a negative sort, it takes one ad to appear in an inappropriate place for, a major brand to have a much more negative reaction than they would otherwise, so.
I think we said that with YouTube, Google Video,
Right.
stupid videos. I mean,
Yahoo even with the chat room.
yeah, they're not.
Their challenge is, they hide, or they don't hide, but they stick to the, they stick to the Safe Harbor Act. So they either have to not review any content, or if they do, then, it's kind of a double-edged sword. And I think that's what YouTube and Charcoal and those sites are going through right now, which is, that problem. But if you actually look at all those sites, there really is no video advertising on there because they haven't sold any yet. And it's, Google ads or ads from our company on, display ads on the peripherals, but not actual video ads that you see on those sites.
So it's becoming more like television in some way.
Well, I think that you have to understand.
Satellite.
Yeah, there's an ecosystem of the internet, and the advertisers are a key part of that. If you have an ad-supported network, advertisers are a key part of that ecosystem. They have to live and breathe with the rest of us, and I think to ignore it is to your own,
Well, what
it's gonna
about
be a challenge.
advertisers that can't advertise on television?
Well,
Like for,
like
you mean for,
casinos?
because they're regulated or?
Yeah.
alcohol.
They have, very,
Sure.
we work with a lot
You
of.
work with
we
all
work,
of them?
I'd say some of our top clients are regulated for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And, they love the internet because, things like geotargeting, health
But yet
insurance companies
there's-
have to ensure they advertise in a specific state, or a mortgage company can only lend in specific states. So, the internet provides a tremendous ability for that.
But yet the standards are kind of following the ones that are, the regulated standards of television in some sense.
I think
Well, I
also,
think-
Most of our customers who are regulated in one medium, approach the internet with the same level of,
That's right.
or caution, or however you want to put it. One of our clients is a large tobacco company, and they actually interpret. They go 130% above what the law says in terms of, for instance, the law says you're supposed to market to people 18 and older, and not 21, and they choose to work with 21 and older, proactively to stay on that right side.
and the content guys get a say too. Often the content guys, there'll be some clauses in there on, what's around it, what's allowed to be around it. The classic what Jen said before, having alcohol around kids' content,
Not going to work.
not going to work too
Right.
well.
My Heineken client is not going there.
Right.
So,
I think just
ahead.
one more comment. I think what I've heard a lot in the sessions in the last couple of days too is people talking about retrofitting advertising into content. And while it's great to put a business model together with content and don't think about advertising, to retrofit is really difficult. But to bring us in the beginning and to help us shape and figure out your advertising model, as we were saying before, it's not just about pre-rolls. It's not, how do we really get involved in your content? That's a win-win for us, because we know consumers aren't watching the 15s and 30s the way they used to. So involving us early on in the process is definitely one way to get around this, and helping us put you in the right environment that other advertisers are more willing to buy.
I want to take a question from the audience because I have at least 20 more questions for you guys, but I'd like to see what would you like to know from our panel?
Building on what you just said, Jen.
Yes.
One of the questions, I'm a media consultant and I basically work with content producers. A lot of them want to do brand in entertainment. The question is, how do you start that process? How do you start that deal? I may have a great resume in film, I may have a great resume in television and executing things. Online is a new medium for me. How do I get that deal started? Because I want to incorporate your products into the content. I'm writing the script right now. How do you start those conversations?
Great question.
When I don't have the metrics, the measurements, the guarantee that I'm going to get that 18 to 34 demographic, although that's who we're targeting, but there's no guarantee. How do you do that, and what kind of confidence is there in terms of those negotiations deals?
It's a great question, and it's a tough conversation because you're right. If you don't have all the deals in place, and we were talking about this earlier as a group. A lot of people I've heard today too say, what's the threshold? How many views do I need before you're willing to, consider me? And that's a big part of it. I mean, we need to. It's the same thing in video on demand. There's all these independent producers out there who a lot of people have thrown their content up on, the MSOs, the Comcasts, and those companies, but they're not getting any traction with it. So I think getting leverage with a couple companies and looking at the clients before you come to us and saying, okay, this is the client you have, this is our content, we really would like to talk with you, but have open conversations with us down the path of, do you think it makes any sense? How can we work with you? And we'll give you some advice. I can't tell you how many VOD companies I have talked with, and some are successful and some haven't been, in conversations that we've had.
Let's just break that down because I think it's a great question. And the point here is that in television, we started this in '02, branded entertainment is now widely accepted, and even Ellen DeGeneres incorporates it into her show. So, and with American Idol and everyone else, Survivor and so on, we know the stories. But how do you then go to Coke, like one of Jan's clients, and say, Coke, we think that this VOD or a broadband channel is actually going to work better than American Idol. Are they ever going to buy that, and what are they going to do?
Yeah, I think it's important to work with us down our current, target audience obviously is key, but what is our messaging? Where are we trying to go with the brand? Just because you see it out there today doesn't mean that's the future of the brand. So it's important to really get in as soon as you can and really have those discussions, one-on-one.
So have the content developed for the brand versus content developed for just content's sake, in some sense, would work to start.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
I was actually, this 2 years ago, I was on a panel, and the head of advertising for JCPenney was sitting where we are, and he made an interesting comment, which I'm sure you guys from the agency side, every publisher in the world thinks they have the hottest, greatest thing since sliced bread, and it's perfect for Coke, or whatever it is.
Everything's perfect for Coke. Every pitch I've heard.
Well, I mean, no disrespect to any content publishers here, and a lot of it's just idea driven, right? Have a great idea, and the JCPenney guy put it in a great fashion, which was. I love to get great ideas. It doesn't need to meet with you for an hour. It doesn't need to mean you need to call me every 30 minutes, or once a week and follow up with me and all that. If you have a great idea and we decide to use it, we're going to reward you in some fashion. And the interesting thing is really the smaller content producers generally have the best ideas, yet they have the least ability to replicate it and scale in some fashion, which Jen had talked about before. So. You need to swallow that with a grain of salt and recognize, hey, an agency or an advertiser might recognize and value an idea that you bring to them. And they might, somehow use it, elsewhere, take it on their own. And,
that happens. That happens. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if I can just add to that, because I think it depends on, there's a trend right now going on with media being brought back into creative agencies, and that recently happened with our agency. And so it really depends if it's a media or if it's a creative opportunity, because sometimes I evaluate, I'm reading scripts, I'm reading content, and if it's a piece of content that we want to partner to develop, then we look at that more as of creative side of development, and then we'll work on getting it out there and getting it distributed. Versus if it's a media idea, then depending on the target it's reaching and the placement, and depending on how niche the audience is, we'll evaluate it more on media criteria versus creative criteria. So I think that trend, I think a few years ago we trended with media being separated from creative agencies. I think moving forward you'll see a lot more integration, whether it's formal integration or just working closely in partnership
So-
together. I think that's going to be critical.
Maria, is this for just television,
I
film,
think it's
or everything?
across the board.
Across the board. Okay,
There's no
very
reason.
important for this audience. Simon wants to say something.
Oh,
I'll
no,
take-
no,
oh,
no,
no.
it's just not
One more
intended to be-
question
Can I-
there first. And then
Can I just say someone that, can we recognize the gentleman from Unilever in the front row who I'm sure has something important to say?
And we have great ideas for you. All content. We'll get to you next. Gentleman in the fourth row.
I can say that his sister was my roommate in college.
We had to recruit a few people to this panel.
How many of you represent advertisers that would advertise, say, in FHM or Maxim Magazine? And what metric judging systems are out there right now that content producers can go acquire that fit your models?
You mean like a ratings system?
Yeah.
I mean, online, most companies use ComScore and media metrics type, or Atlas, AppPlan, or DoubleClick's media planning tools. So there's a variety of companies that have panels out there, and they're kind of the golden, handling. I mean, it's I think I could be correct. I could be massively incorrect, but I'd heard that Nielsen's TV panel is only 5,000 homes. ComScore's internet panel, which owns Nielsen and or owns Net Ratings and Media Metrics, is a million users in the
No
United
Nielsen
States.
bashing on this panel.
No, I'm
please.
not. I'm not. I'm saying, differences in TV measurements. The panels are much smaller, and yet so much money.
See, we work in multiple media here.
Right. There you go. Whereas the internet's actually much more accurate in many ways.
The measurement is much
Yeah.
better, much more accurate. Okay, so gentlemen from Unilever, you can ask a question. You can come up here. We'll do pitches to you. While
You can have a nice panel.
now that you've been identified.
That's another question. So I oversee media and entertainment for Unilever, and I actually agree with a lot of what these guys are saying. With the exception of, as clients go, I mean, everybody's always like, oh, clients, want this and want that. The reality is we do want to be able to use the internet and broadband in a big way. I think historically we've been able to do television campaigns that had famous jingles or whatever, and we're really able to get into kind of the pop culture. And we've never really, in our view, we have not seen that on the internet. We haven't seen a campaign, especially targeted at mass moms, that did that. So we recently created these Dove webisodes, which have got, with that objective in mind. We're going to do it big. We're going to treat it like a TV spot. So we hired a top director, Penny Marshall. We hired a Felicity Huffman to star in that.
Wow.
When we did all the things that you would normally do, and you wonder why because people are trying to retrofit this, then you have to customize it. Even during the shoot, we extended it a day to customize the other spots, the television spots, the print ad, so that she would do things that would customize.
So was Felicity in all three medium, or was it just on broadband? Everywhere. So you basically.
Also in the TV ads, she was in but the thing that was groundbreaking about it was that the internet was the centerpiece. If we
Ah.
spent the vast majority of normally we use the internet as kind of an amplification tool for the sweepstakes or something.
Including the actual media.
So would you share the budget percentage with us? What was like internet versus TV? I'm getting more and more information as the panel goes on, and it's closer to that, cocktail hour.
Much larger than any historical campaign we've ever done online.
So what, 6%?
Think about it.
As in hundreds of thousands, millions.
Big. It's more than we spent on television.
Wow, it's big. Okay.
And it was big. I mean, like with the talent, the fact that we ran it on the homepage.
We need your version of big.
How did you make that decision to do this campaign?
Because we were exactly at that point. We knew that something big was happening with video online. Broadband penetration had hit critical mass. We know that, this TiVo and people aren't watching. We're not getting the same effective results from television. And historically, great marketers follow their audience. And we did focus groups with moms, and they're telling us they're managing their whole life online. They're putting pictures online. They're managing soccer games, their finances, email, they're doing everything online. And the target for this campaign was literally moms with the kids. It was a product that's Dove Night. It's supposed to kind of de-stress you at the end of the night when you take a shower. And like moms are all stressed and go with stuff, so it just made sense. And we decided, you know what, we haven't seen it yet. We're going to go for it. We're going to try to make it big. We're going to try to do something engaging and entertaining for
It's happening. P&G has a couple campaigns, one that's kind of like a version of MySpace, and then one version of your Dove campaign where they created the community on the web, and then they went into other forms of advertising.
Did you struggle getting the distribution, the tonnage for it?
No. The thing about the internet that is so unique is you can have all those other things about interaction and engagement also, but you also have portals that have broadcast type reach. Yahoo reaches 20 million people a day. You know, so does Google and MSN and all those guys. So if you use it appropriately and you know what you're doing, you can actually do both. And again, you can't use just one medium in anything anymore.
Right.
So that's when we still use the television, but we use it to drive people to the webisodes. We still use the print. It's not the old days where you can buy the 3 networks. You have to use everything. But the question is, how do you, do it appropriately and which one kind of forms the center?
But if you want to target down to that demographic, like the women, did you struggle getting the inventory there, or you got enough inventory?
I think the difference today versus the past has been, we've looked at 18 to 34, we've looked at tweens, we've looked at all these people, and they are very much in all of the forms of media that we've been talking about at this entire conference. But as Babs is saying, now we're looking at moms in a very different way. That's very innovative. I mean, we have a ton of packaged good clients, and moms are definitely online. They're watching video on demand. You're seeing before. I mean, we did a campaign for moms on TiVo, because we know that she's time shifting, and we know she doesn't have the time to watch something. We did something special in the holiday season just for her. So I think that's where we're seeing this great advance in the areas that different target audiences are online that never have been before. So there's a lot of new advertisers that are jumping in.
Also,
I'm
you have to
glad-
realize, I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
with the Dove Night example, by the way, if anybody wants to see it, it's dovenight.com.
Yay!
Word of mouth in action.
Somebody give Maria 10 CPM.
But the interesting thing is that a lot of consumer packaged goods clients need mass reach. And so part of the challenge was, how do you get out there and seed it in a very mass way? That's why TV was leveraged, AOL was leveraged in terms of a portal to generate that mass reach. And then it was built upon word-of-mouth marketing and PR. The campaign generated a tremendous amount of PR and word-of-mouth marketing that then just took off from there. So really the challenge around CPGs is, how do you build that momentum, and how do you build that mass reach?
And I'm glad that we're bringing this up, because I've attended a few of these panels at the conference, and it was all about the young youth male demographic. And Hollywood Portfolio is an incubator that incubates digital media networks, and we're working on one that's focused on baby boomer women. And we went to all of our companies, technology providers, electronics manufacturers, digital media companies, and asked them, how are they reaching these women? That was their first step. It was the study. And they aren't. And there's maybe like 1 or 2 advocates in the company that actually cares to reach these women, and then everybody else is sort of just kind of going, well, they're really not on the web. They don't have PDAs. They're really not using the cell phone for anything but calls, and so on and so forth, which is interesting to see that the other brands and the larger companies, as well as the smaller ones, are seeing that the new niches are emerging, and we need to go beyond this young male audience as our only.
I think that we're bringing up a whole lot of parenting content at the moment, which will launch in the next couple of weeks. It's really, we've got vegetarian cooking. We've got, we're out there looking for knitting.
Babies or for parents?
No, we're out there looking for knitting videos at the moment. It doesn't matter if you get the content up there. If it's being watched, then the advertisers.
So the message is that we are actually, all the networks that you're seeing here, as well as advertisers, as well, everyone who's funding the content, is looking towards other demographics and other niches above and beyond. I mean, I think I personally had dealt with 6 launches of Gen Y networks in the 90s, and it's kind of beyond the Gen Y now. I'll take where was the next, you were there, okay.
Yeah, I just had a question about the 30-second spot. One of my understandings is...
Wrong panel, no, go ahead.
Yeah, it was successful, it was easy to buy, and the advertisers...
Who says it was successful?
Across networks. And I'm just curious, taking that online...
It's too long.
How hard is it to buy across all the networks? And as you experiment, does making it highly interactive actually reduce your ability to have reach?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with a lot of what the panel said, and I'm a big proponent of trying new things and innovating, but I think we also need to develop standards for the campaigns to achieve more mass reach and scale. I just think that those standards aren't necessarily the 30-second pre-roll. But I think, as we develop and test and see what's connecting with consumers, those standards, those new standards will begin to evolve, and we'll develop new types of formats.
Yeah, just to add, execution, the more complicated the ad, the harder it is to get it, to execute across lots of more sites and so forth. I actually think, video is, the pre-roll spots are fairly universal, that their standards have been defined, and every publisher knows exactly what they need to do in order to technologically be a participant in it. The more challenging ads to get mass reach across lots of sites are the in-page ads that are, the eye blaster and other types of ads that are flying out in front of you, because when you program them for one, it doesn't necessarily work on another site, either from a technology perspective or from a way it just physically appears, right? Yahoo has its own look and feel versus MSN. And for Dove's ad, if you had one, I apologize. For it to pop out on the page, it would look entirely different on one site versus another, and you need to take that continuity into effect, and it becomes very expensive. And I think, quite frankly, ladies from the agency, agencies have shied away because of the implementation hassles and the amount of extra time it takes for some of the more complex ads to be out. It's a costly endeavor. Companies like our space, and I think Heavy and Rue. Help to simplify that, because we aggregate all this media and provide it in one kind of a integration point, so that the agencies don't have to worry about individual implementations across lots of different publishers.
I think with the things that we're looking to do now is that you play the 15-second ad, click through to find out more information. You can watch a 3-minute video on a product. If it was a car, here's the new Ford, here's the price. Click here to get more information. Go in, watch a 3-minute video on the card. But really starting to take the consumer, if they like what they see, give them 15 seconds to make a decision, or click through, which can last a bit longer, but then slowly pointing them down and giving them more and more information. But it's information they can get immediately. We've got a saying in-house, you can't click your TV, But if they want more information, present the product to them, present the opportunity to them, and then start developing the relationship with the consumer. And it's return on relationship.
It's all about engagement these days.
So in 1997, we did this company called Catch TV, which was connecting television programming with the web. And Lieberman Research did a market research study for us. And they asked people, like, if you were in the market for BMW and you're watching a BMW ad on television, how much would you want to know about that BMW? And it was just astonishing to find out how much they wanted to know. So do you have any sort of way of measuring the consumer interest, once you get them with the ad and they click through? Do you have some sort of a measurement today that shows to advertisers how much
the
really
technologies are very well developed for measuring, literally the moment that somebody sees an ad, how long they're seeing it. You can detect the mouse movement. You understand
but then
where
layers
they're actually how many times they've seen it, how deep they're going in, how long they're spending through the click, how many times did they click, how many times, that's the beauty of the internet.
And so when you analyze that and you go to Unilever and you say, this really worked, what has really worked? How do you present it?
We've literally delivered 100-page research projects or research papers.
Give me just like 3 bullet points from that 100.
There's the general ways that the internet advertising effectiveness is measured is either through surveys, and Maria mentioned a company called Dynamic Logic before. That's kind of the leader in the space. So it's getting quantitative opinions from people about exactly how they feel about an ad, and the beauty of it is you can. We've generated literally several thousand surveys in a matter of an hour or two for an advertiser, where it would take them forever to get a focus group in person, expose them to the ad, collect all their feedback, and at a much more expensive rate. The second form of data that you're able to provide them is more of the technical data, right? How many people saw your ad? Where were they geographically? How did they respond to it? It's not a person's opinion; it's their actual physical interaction with the ad. And there's a ton of metrics. Hundreds, if not 100 or more metrics that advertisers look at online, on a daily basis, or in their understanding of how a campaign's performing and how they're going to adjust it and so forth.
Yeah,
we had a good one with Nescafe. Nescafe came on and ran some 15-second spots, and you signed up for a new type of coffee. And we thought this is a bit of an interesting environment for them to come in, but it was a month campaign, and we ran out of coffee in 8 days, because of the response. But
I'll let Unilever say one more thing, because he's paying for everyone's salary on the panel. So we'll let him say one more thing. What do you guys think? Is that okay?
No, I was just on those points. As far as measurement, we measure the brand attributes and seeing lifts in brand attributes, and ultimately it's sales. I mean, you look at a campaign, like look at a campaign. You don't have to. I don't think you have to get so granular with everything just because it's the internet. You know, depending on your product, you measure it based on what's most important to you. And then to your question about
30-second ad.
yeah, it's definitely hard. I mean, it's definitely hard. Like we have senior involvement, and I've been working on this thing every day for 6 months, and I'm looking at dailies. I never put the TV tape, and I don't even know what networks I'm working on.
You're shooting independent films the next thing you know. It's kind of funny. It's all merging.
But anytime you're in a new industry or anything, the beginning part, that laying it out, being successful early on is going to be harder. When TV first started, there weren't necessarily, clear. Profit was just paying for the production of soap operas. It was paying for the content. Texaco Star Theater was running, the guys singing songs about Texaco to start the show. There's always different miles in the front end of any industry, and it's harder at the beginning.
It's evolving.
And then it evolves.
So with that point, I'd like to have everybody give me a thought for the future. So like I'm going to start by saying, based on what I've heard from the panelists today, we're going to have sort of almost on-the-fly, real-time generated content based on what users are actually, how users are reacting to it, almost like political polling, but for content. Do you think that's going to happen? Now, you go ahead and give us an example of where you think this is going, like, 10 years from now.
Well, it was interesting what he was saying because I'm curious about the reaction, the time it takes for the lift in sales to occur based on broadband, the advertising that you're doing with your webisodes. So at that point, do you measure the lift in sales and then look at locations? Do you look at regions of the country where you can start marketing more heavily through retail? So that's, so you can even benefit from that information even further. So
They do cluster analysis.
that's it.
Yeah, we're naturally distributing mass product.
Right. So how quickly can you react to, from the time it takes from the broadband sales to react, then to, excuse me.
Actually optimize the campaign or in general?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
just-
optimize the campaign.
Exactly.
We wouldn't do it in the way that you do it with clicks, where it's like every week you have to give yourself a certain cycle and products like ours. So we essentially look at the end of the campaign if we hit higher than our objectives. It's a little different.
It's like 6 to 12-month periods versus like something instantaneous. Yeah, of course.
See in a quarter when the campaign's over how your sales is.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's coming from a CBS radio perspective and having 180 properties in most of the top 50 markets. That's where I see at least us benefiting a brand like yourself, with location-based
So
type
Maria,
services and marketing.
thought for the future.
I think if I look into my crystal ball, I would love to see 10 years from now the digital technology evolve to the point that we could actually reach the specific consumer we're looking to reach with a specific message that we want to get across at the exact time when they're receptive to that message. And I think you laugh.
And you
but
guys will develop it.
and that's my challenge. I think
That's
we
a
gotta
great
develop
challenge.
that.
10.
Agreed. And what I was going to say is two things. Today we're one-to-many, and we need to be one-to-one communication. We've got to change that. But the metrics and measurement have to come along with it. And the way we live today with these buckets, where TV's measured one way and broadband's measured another way, can't last into the future. If we don't start making the lowest common denominator of measurement something that's better than what we get today, then we're all going to fall flat. So that's the only way we're going to get this one-to-one communication.
Simon, how did you rename the panel?
Did you go there?
I didn't really, but I would love to see a day where the marketing messages that we create generate an experience that are as much a part of our consumers' lives as the products that we sell.
That's a great point. Robert.
I'm not there yet, but what I do know is that none of the consumers, apart from probably a few members on this panel, go home at night and say, I'm turning on my TV to watch advertising. They really turn it on to watch the content. And I think we've got to keep that in mind. And, in-house, we've been very, very conscious of little things like the 30-second commercial. We have a far bigger drop-off. But in the future, I think it's the content, and the users will tell us which way to go. But I haven't got the answer today.
So you have to entertain them. John.
I guess a lot of stuff in 10 years. I think you'll walk into a Best Buy and there won't be a TV section because the monitor you use for your computer will just become ubiquitous with your centralized entertainment thing. I think 10 years from now we'll all be at this Digital Hollywood Spring thing in the year 2016 and be talking about things like 3D. How are we using 3D and sensory perception and, you know, more advanced things in the advertising process. And, you know, so we'd be laughing, looking back and saying, you know, gosh, I can't believe we had a panel focused on taking a commercial from TV and putting it on the internet because, you know.
And the screens will be projected on our retina through microvision.
I actually have
Okay.
these virtual reality goggles. They're pretty
Rick,
cool.
did you answer this question?
Oh, I guess I didn't.
Okay, Rick.
My bad. I guess in my point.
So I see
I
you
was
don't
too
get
busy
off the
asking
hook
about
even though the cocktails are waiting.
I was thinking that, you know, based on a mobile device, I think that's I think mobile anytime, anywhere. I agree with what she says. I hope that definitely can happen. Where at the exact time I want to purchase something, that it's available to my fingertips. And I think that mobile's going to be the only way to do it, as long as your battery lasts long enough.
Or there's something beyond that. Well, thank you very much. You've been an outstanding audience. An outstanding panel. Thank you.